Soramit namiyan, ramit na jeng yare. Soramit namiyan, zigbamba yala. Koroko bena selabi, koroko bena kamale, idiaroko bena jarama, koroko bena kamale. I feel so at home here, so at home. Well, I'm not going to tell you the history of the Unitarian Church. That would be ridiculous. I just realized where I'm at. But those present here understand the history of this institution. And this institution has done so much for the upliftment. It was part of the Underground Railroad. It was a part of the Harlem Renaissance. And I could go on and on and on about this. But here's what I want to do. I want to give you an experience. I want to give you an experience. I was born in Texas, and I want to talk about Juneteenth, but I want to do it, and I want to blend some of my African ancestry with a little bit of my Texas history, with a little bit of Tejano, porque los tejanos son muy importantes en Texas también, ¿sí? Come on, a little more. Adaleka Jaliada. Come on, lift your voices, feel it. Yeah, Jalia. Yeah, Adaleka Jaliada. Adaleka Jaliada. There we go. Ambia Sinana. Kumbemba Jali Musaninja Rekelu. Ambia Sinana. There was once a king who had two servants. They followed him night and day, day and night. There was never a time where the king was not without these two servants. But the king tired of having these two servants follow him everywhere he went. Yeah, Jalia. Yeah, Jalia. Now, Lord, Alalega Jalia da. Now, Lord, a little lower. Yeah, Jalia. Alaleka Jaliada. Powerful whisper. Yeah, Jalia. Alaleka Jaliada. Don't clap. There's a reason why you did not clap. Because what we just did is called Jalia. And I just want to see a show of hands. How many of you at the end of that song, as it went away, felt really peaceful? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you at the end of that song were deep in thought about the story that you just heard? You're processing the story. How many of you? Raise your hand. Okay, that is Jalia. The job of the oral historian or the griot is to move everyone in that direction. But the griot can only do that if we're unified together. We can achieve peace, but it takes each and every one of us to do it. It takes every single voice to do it. That's why you didn't clap. And the fact that you weren't moved to clap is the greatest gift you can give a griot. I am a griot. I was born in Texas. I was raised in the United States, but I am a griot. When they brought the enslaved people over here, they didn't bring empty-minded or empty vessels. They brought human beings. And the point I want to make today that I really want you to sit with about Juneteenth, there's actually two things. The first thing I want you to think about is this. Human beings have not and will never see themselves as anything other than free living under oppressive conditions. There is no such thing as a slave. Slaves have to be created. Nobody is born a slave. We are all born free. The popular narrative around Juneteenth, that the people didn't know about the Emancipation Proclamation for more than 2 years and that they did not know they were free. I want you to change that a little bit. They always knew they were free. They always understood that they were a free people. And the other part of Juneteenth, and I'm gonna be honest with you, because I gotta be real honest, because that's the only way, being vulnerable and honest is the only way people trust you. So I'm just gonna be real honest. When I was a child growing up, the only thing I knew about Juneteenth was that I got to eat red velvet cake, and strawberry soda pop together at the same time in Houston. And we would celebrate Juneteenth there with other churches. Juneteenth was a church celebration. In fact, the word Jubilee, it didn't mean to celebrate. They understood what Jubilee was. Jubilee is a calling. It's a calling. Have you ever heard of, I'm sorry, I keep having to remember where I am, the shofar. Everyone knows the shofar? In Hebrew, Jubilee is a shofar. Shofar and Jubilee are the same word. They're synonyms. They're synonyms. And what's important to understand about these people in Galveston at this time is they were deeply, deeply, deeply religious people. In a way, sometimes I think we might not really comprehend, but the way to comprehend it is this. How do people survive something like slavery? They embrace their spirituality. They embrace their spirit.
Read that the guitar came from Africa. Is that a precursor to the modern day guitar?
Not really. This is a precursor to what's called the banjo.
Oh, the banjo.
Banjo. Wow. Yeah. In the 1820s, if you read anything about Thomas Jefferson wrote about the enslaved people on his plantation creating these instruments. And in Jefferson's memoirs, he calls it the banjar, B-A-N-J-A-R. This is the ancestor. They took what they had, the materials, to create this here. And it's 21.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. I heard you say that people were deeply spiritual, and I would like to know what that looked like, what form that took, and like if you walked into a church, how you would know people were deeply spiritual, and also if I could add something else onto that. Do African roots, are they part of how people are spiritual, African culture?
Thank you for that. Okay, the early enslaved people saw themselves as African. Every institution they created coming out of slavery, they called the African this, the African that, the African thus, the African so. They were rooted deeply in what I would call African spiritual practices, even though they weren't allowed to have them. Now, all over the world. So, I have a theory about Juneteenth. It's my theory. I've traveled all over the world and I've seen how formerly enslaved people have taken religions and made them their own. I believe here in this country that the use of red during Juneteenth, the red velvet cake, the red soda, is a recognition of sacrament. Red is an important color in all those different religions in recognizing the sacrifice that others have made, the blood that they've given, right?
I never heard of Juneteenth maybe till, I don't know, I feel like the last 10 years. I
Right.
never heard of it. So I'm still kind of, and then it just all of a sudden it felt like, to me, it was a holiday. How did it evolve to become a cause that people were like, we need to have this day and we need to celebrate? Do you think it kind of started in Texas? Was it a celebration, like let's bring everyone in on this celebration?
How did it evolve to the point where we have this national Juneteenth when very few people in this country knew anything about it? I'll tell you exactly how that happened. Juneteenth isn't the only celebration. of Freedom Day. They called them Freedom Days. Freedom Days were celebrated all over the country by formerly enslaved people. They called them Freedom Days. Juneteenth is the most popular. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.